Hey everybody, welcome back to Hannah L. Clark's Writing Gems. For those of you who are just joining us, I am Hannah L. Clark, the author of the previously self-published young adult fantasy adventure called Cobblegoth that has recently been picked up by a professional publisher and will be re-released after having been heavily revised as under the new title of Uncovering Cobblegoth. And that's going to come out this May, which we're really excited about, so look for that. Today is writing gem number 10, and I wanted to talk to you guys about my editing process, what I do when I'm kind of, fine-tuning a manuscript. Now, going back to the beginning of my writing gems, like writing gem 1, 2, and 3-ish, I talked about kind of my pre-writing process, what I do to get ready to write a manuscript. And as if you've seen those before, you know that I put a lot of time in my pre-writing process, and I've done it differently. Like when I first started out writing, I did it differently where I didn't put very much time in my pre-writing and I just sat down and just wrote whatever I wanted to. That, for me, proved to be really confusing and really messy. And so I, kept learning and kept reading and kept attending conferences or workshops and whatnot, and learned that for me, doing a lot of pre-writing was really helpful in making the actual writing process of it flow much better and be much more productive. I had to make a lot less big changes to my manuscripts. So everybody's different. That could be the way it is for you. It could also not be. I mean, you just get to decide. For me, outlining and story mapping and that kind of stuff is really, really important to do beforehand. So, what I do after I've done my story mapping is I write a super duper detailed manuscript, detailed outline. And I think I showed this to you guys in, oh gosh, maybe I didn't show this to you guys. I know I talked about my outlining process in like chapter breaks. I think that was writing gem 4 or 5. But anyways, this is an outline that I do, and this is about a 100-page outline for I think it's about 400-page novel. So this is for book 2 that I just finished this summer, and it ended up being so worth putting the time and energy into this detailed of a manuscript, because the writing process was not only so much more effective, but it was so much more fun, because I didn't have to worry about all this stuff. I already knew it was coming, and I knew it to a very finite level. So the details were already in place, and I just got to create. It was like the fun of story mapping. That's one of my favorite parts of story mapping, and so getting to write a manuscript and feeling that same sort of creative freedom going on was so much funner than the things that the kind of writing process that I've had in the past. So that's where I start out. After I've got my outline written, I start writing my manuscript. And this is the first draft of book 2 that I finished, I think it was last April. And as you can see, it's very marked up. There's lots of sticky notes for myself and stuff. And this is all I made all these changes before I ever let anybody else see the manuscript. And I do that. I've learned that it's best for me to get it as far along as I want it to be on my own, and then I'll give it to other people to take a look at, and then they can give me feedback. If I give it to other people before I've done everything I can to make it as good as I can do it without feedback, it gets really frustrating for me. So I've learned over the last 8 years that I need to get it as far as I can take it on my own before I let other people look at it and then start giving me feedback. So this was my first draft. After I'd finished my first draft, I gave it to three beta readers. And these are people that I really trust and that are not writers. I don't give it to writers my first time around because I want to see raw reactions without a super critical eye, because other writers are going to have a much more critical eye of your writing than readers are. Unless, of course, they're really sophisticated readers, which those people usually end up being sort of writers. So I usually stick with people who they like to read mainstream fiction. because, you know, they're just really looking for a good story. And that's not saying that they're not sophisticated. It's just saying that they're much more easily taken on a journey. Their suspense of belief is much easier to convince than it is probably like an English major. So I give it to the first wave of beta readers. They read through it, and then they give me their feedback. I take their feedback, I really kind of, you know, go through it, hash it over in my mind, and then I go through my manuscript again. I print out another manuscript, go through it again, and make my own notes in the manuscript after I've compiled all of theirs and decided what I'm going to do with those. So that's what I do then, and then I'll go in and I'll revise my manuscript for a third draft. So that's draft 3. And I've heard of, like, Brandon Sanderson. He's a really fantastic fantasy author. Fantastic. Elantris and the Mistborn series, The Way of Kings. He's that author. He said that he likes to keep it to... He doesn't spend any less than 3 drafts on a novel. Each one will have at least 3 drafts, and that's kind of what I've learned with my own. I'm sure I'm not done with book 2 yet. There's at least one more major revision to go through, and then after that it'll be more fine tuning. But 3 drafts is usually, once you've gotten far enough along in your development as a writer, 3 drafts is really a good, solid revision process to go through. But right now I am in the post-major revisions. These are no longer drafts, these are just revisions. So in the beginning you're going to go through like major overhauls in your revising once you get feedback from other readers and you go through it yourself and so on. And then you're going to get it to a certain point to where everything is really in place, really solid, and now you're just fine-tuning. You're really just looking at the language and the inconsistencies that might be throughout, like hair color, or, you know, wait, that guy didn't say that back then, he said this, and then you have to, like, you know, switch or update it kind of stuff. And that is what I call more of the fine-tuning of editing. And right now I'm on the very, second to last-ish fine-tuning revision of Uncovering Kabogoth. And this... Now, when I wrote Uncovering Kabogoth and self-published it as Kabogoth, that was 2 years ago. I published in December of 2011, and since then I've grown a lot as an author, probably more than I've grown at any time in my writing as an author. I've grown over the last 2 years, and a lot of that has come from, you know, experiencing being a published author and getting the feedback from readers, and then also the confidence that comes when you find out that readers actually like your stuff. That's a really cool feeling, because beforehand, before you get it out into like actual readers' hands, you're constantly doing battle in your head of like, am I crazy for believing this is actually good, or, you know, whatnot. And then once you have the validation of readers actually being excited about it and really excited to read the next book, that gives a whole level of confidence, at least I found for myself in my writing. And so once I got accepted by the publisher that I'm with now, the Cedar Fort, I decided that I wanted to really revise book 1. And that's why it's 50 pages longer, and I'm way happier with it. So this is an example, though, of the kind of revisions that I did. And it wasn't like a major overhaul, not like the drafting that I was talking about earlier. This was still a fine-tuning, but it was a pretty intense fine-tuning. And this is kind of what it looks like for me. Let me find a good page for you of how intense I get in my fine-tuning. So my pages will start looking something like this. And, you know, I'll even have, every once in a while, I'll even have full scenes plugged in that I, you know, just come to me while I'm revising and really clarify some things. And the further along that you get in your fine-tuning editing, the less often, at least for me, the less often you'll see sticky notes with new scenes or big chunks of dialogue or whatever stuck in them, because you're just really starting to get it really smoothed out and really fine-tuned. So this is the last big revision of Uncovering Kabogoth that I will ever do, because once it's out there, I could change it in the future depending on what happens, but as of right now, I feel very satisfied with it. So that's that. And now I'm on the very almost second to last draft of this manuscript that will go to the content or the copy editor, and then she will kind of go through it one last time, give it back to me to go through it one last time just to make sure there's nothing there, and then we're done with it. Then it goes to press or to print. So once I get to this point though, these are the kind of edits that you'll see every once in a while. I'll have like a word or something show up in my manuscripts because it's been through so many, been through so many people looking at it, but also I've gotten it to where I really feel like it's almost ready. It's done, and so that is pretty much my editing process. It's just really editing is just a matter of just kind of like it's almost like just smoothing it out. You get to a point to where you've actually got your clay with your drafts, and then you get your if you're looking at it in a kind of pottery sort of way, you get your clay, you form your clay into what you want it to be, then you fire whatever, cure it, yeah, that's what you call it, and then you start sanding it down and making it really smooth and beautiful and pleasing to the eye, etc. So that's kind of the same process with writing, is you just keep on going through it over and over and over again until it becomes clean and smooth and just a truly professional piece of work. So that is my writing process, or my editing process. It's going to be different for everybody. I know I've said this almost on every writing gem. It's going to be different for every person, but from what I've learned from other writers, it's kind of similar, at least, is that same you fine-tuning, and the further you get along, the less changes you make, because it's getting closer and closer and closer to your goal, which goes back to the whole idea is that if this is your dream, if this is what you're looking for, and what you want to do with your as your career, never ever give up. You just got to keep on working on it and keep on fine-tuning it. If you could see the stack of drafts of Uncovering Kabbagath that I have, it's probably a good 5 feet tall, because there's probably a good 20 drafts of this book that I've believed in from the beginning, and I still believe in it, and it's finally to a point to where I really feel like it is what I've always imagined it could be. And that took me 8 years, and 23 years before that of dreaming of becoming what I am, an author right now. And so don't ever give up. It's totally possible, and you can do it if you're willing to put in the work. And that's really what it is it's work. And anybody can work. Anybody can. So there it is. I hope this is helpful for you, and I hope it helps you along in figuring out your own editing process, and that you are able to see this dream of yours realized. And so anyway, we'll see you guys next time, and thanks for stopping by.